Excited now to bring on Bryan Fischer, who we'll bring him on as he's on the call, and we'll elevate him to panelist. But he's very recently with Sports Illustrated, but he's been all over the place. Honestly, you've probably seen his byline at either Fox Sports, NBC, CBS, kind of anywhere that you've read about football. So we'll bring on Bryan for our media interview this week, and dive into his latest work. All right, we're actually having technical difficulties. Uh, looks like he accidentally just logged off the call, so we'll get that figured out. Uh, he's logging back in as we speak. So in the meantime, this is now our second team of the week in a row from Georgia. Incidentally, Georgia won last week, and then Kennesaw State won this week. There's Bryan. Now we got him. Bryan, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, sorry about that. Having the early technical difficulties.
Early technical difficulties. Now, first thing I'm going to point out before I do anything is I'm going to step to the side and point out that I have an Arsenal flag behind me, and I see that you have an
Very
Arsenal
cool.
banner behind you. Before we talk any football, how did you feel about the Arsenal Liverpool game on Saturday, Sunday?
Happy with the draw. I don't I didn't mind it given the injury situation that we were at. But you know what? It's been a rough start to the season compared to I think expectations. But I'll take it.
Now, as we get into American football, I know that you have a weekly kind of rundown of the week nine takeaways. So there were a few of those that I wanted to run through with you, if that's all right. First of which was Texas A&M and their effort on Saturday against LSU, and kind of them making the most of both of their quarterbacks. What did you take away from that game?
Well, I think Texas A&M is for real. I think this was a team that when we kind of came into the year, we kind of said, all right, maybe this is a team that could go eight, 9 wins, possibly, make a little bit of noise in Mike Elko's first year. But this is a tough physical team. They have played really well down the stretch, and I think this is a team that is kind of growing into that role. I don't think anybody, even the most diehard maroon and white faithful, could have predicted that they would have been leading the SEC at this point in the year. But it's really setting up for a pretty fun November for the Aggies, and very impressed with what they did, especially, I mean, that second half, defensively, offensively, I mean, they were just rolling like, I've seen the Aggies for a long time. I don't know if I've seen a second half like they had against the Tigers there.
Your breakdown of this past weekend, your takeaways mentioned a couple other teams with quarterback situations, if you will. You've got Penn State and Indiana, who are both playing with backup quarterbacks as well. What did you make of those teams kind of stepping up without their number one guy necessarily under center?
Yeah, I mean, this, quarterback depth, you talk with coaches throughout the country right now, and that's been one thing that they have surprisingly said, you know what, it's so difficult to have not just a quarterback and having a backup, but really a guy that you can count on. And I think we kind of saw this weekend that, some of these teams, they actually do have backups, and that's critical, I think, in college football nowadays. Guys are going to get hurt, and it's so difficult to get guys to buy in to get those reps in practice. And from Penn State, really across the country, we saw it in Texas A&M. Marcel Reed kind of came in. I mean, it was a big weekend for people to kind of come in and have that backup quarterback win them football games, and so that was huge for I think a lot of teams. And we might have seen some changing of the guards as well at a couple of situations around the country.
No, I don't imagine when the college football schedule came out over the summer that anybody was circling the Pitt SMU matchup in the first week of November as a must-see match. But here we are with 7-0 Pitt going to travel to 7-1 SMU for what could be honestly a pretty impactful result in the ACC standings. Can you give us a little preview of that, and how did we get here?
Well, I'll actually be at that game, and it's funny. I mean, I'm from Dallas. I don't think I ever, growing up, ever went to a game at SMU for actual college football. I've been there for several times for high school football, played at that stadium, but it's wild to see the progress that SMU has made under Rhett Lashley. Not only these last couple of years, but this year. I mean, nobody expected them to come in ACC and perform like this. And so, kudos to Rick Hart and everybody there at SMU. I mean, this is really a season to remember. And you look at the tiebreakers, you look at what's ahead there. If they can get past Pitt, this is a massive one in terms of making that college football playoff, which I don't think anybody really was talking about. There in year one of the ACC, but fantastic game coming up. We'll see. In terms of the health of Eli at Pitt, the quarterback there. I mean, I think that's what everybody really is kind of keeping an eye on is whether he is going to be good to go. He's practiced a little bit this week. We'll see. I think that's something that we probably won't know until kickoff. Knowing Pat Narduzzi like I do, so it's going to be interesting to kind of see him and see that game because this is two teams that like to turn you over on defense. Obviously, this is two explosive offenses that really are one of the more interesting test cases in terms of throwing the ball around the yard, and I can't wait. I think if we do get a healthy Eli Holstein against Kevin Jennings, the SMU quarterback, this one has a chance to be kind of one of those wild shootouts at the end of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. And SMU has been, just playing really great. It feels like every week there's a play or a result from them that has people talking. One of the things that write each week is a kind of power rankings of the group of five teams and who's most likely to kind of slide into that spot once we see the college football playoff, uh, final poll, I guess, revealed at the end of the season. You talk about obviously Boise State, Army are at the top of that list right now, but Tulane is someone who you mentioned both in your takeaways from week 9 and also your group of five breakdown. What is it about Tulane that's standing out to you as they go into a fun match tomorrow night, a Halloween match against Charlotte?
Well, I kind of think every time I think about Tulane, I kind of think about that ending against Kansas State and how much they kind of rue, how that all played out. And certainly, the committee is watching those games. They are paying attention to a lot of those things, and so they're going to be they're going to note that Tulane, had a good chance at winning that game. And it's big in the American. I mean, I think if you actually talk about who is playing up to their potential, Tulane is one of those teams. And nothing against Army or Navy. It's certainly terrific seasons that those two academies are having, but the actually high end being able to compete with those Power Five teams, you might give the edge to Tulane right now. And John Summerall, he's a terrific head coach, doing a great job in his first year down there in New Orleans. I mean, you got the quarterback playing well. I think the defense is able to. It's coming along. I don't think that's anything that the staff they expect a little bit higher of a performance level, but I think that is a group that's still growing into the season, trying to find some solutions, especially on the back end. But this is a very good Tulane team, and look, they have the nation's longest conference winning streak right now. This is a team that has run the American last couple of years under Willie Fritz. They're still doing it again this year. Got a big one in a couple of weeks against Navy as well. So very impressed with what I've seen out of Tulane. And I think they are certainly one of those teams when you're talking about having to win that conference champion to get that group of five bid, they're certainly going to be in the mix.
No, it's certainly still some, like you mentioned, some tests to go left for Tulane. They still play Navy, play Memphis, could play Army, but there's certainly off to a hot start and are continuing to build on the momentum they've created in past seasons. So the last team I wanted to ask you about from your takeaways from this week was BYU. Obviously, they came down to Orlando and put a hurting on UCF. They've been putting a hurting on most people they played this year. And your headline in your takeaways was BYU's for real and the team to beat in the Big 12. What is it that has kind of elevated them to that status, whereas maybe they weren't quite there going into the season?
Well, I mean, they're a team that is clutch. They come up with a play here or there. I mean, we certainly saw it against Oklahoma State when they made that fantastic drive to win the game. They just seem to have that it factor, if you will, this season, and been very impressed. I mean, Kalani Sitake, he's consistently tried to build the program, how he wants it, and he has one in a team that plays physical defense, that it makes plays when you want to on offense, and I give credit, Jake Ratzloff. I don't think anybody kind of had him on their radar as being one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12, and I think there's still more to unlock there in terms of the offense and where they can go, especially passing the football. So this is just a team that makes plays in all three phases. Talk
Now,
about
before I let you go, I
complete.
wanted to follow up on our BYU interview earlier. You mentioned you're from Dallas. You're now a Utah resident. Have you gotten any kind of sense of the BYU Utah rivalry out there and what it means to fans in that region? Because we certainly saw Will the kicker from BYU talk about it. It's a game everybody should see at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a new Utahan, if you will, the last couple of years here, but I think you definitely can sense the passion of the two fan bases there. I think it's just a unique rivalry. There's a lot of people that have their car flags on and have red and blue and are wearing it out and about during town, and you can sense the tension between those two fan bases, and frankly, it's probably going to be mean even more than we kind of even anticipated this year. When you get that holy war coming up, because of the fact that BYU is now playing for a college football playoff, and the fact that Utah, their season has not gone anywhere close to what they expect. They expected to be in the position that BYU has been in. So nothing would delight the Utah fans more, and certainly would delight that program more, than handing out an L when they make it down there to Rice Eccles. So it's a fantastic rivalry. The passion on two sides, is very unique, and it's definitely for a rivalry named the Holy War, you wouldn't anticipate it between these two fan bases being so nasty, but it can definitely get pretty nasty. So I'm looking forward to it, next week, and I think it's going to be one of those games that you're definitely going to circle and try to tune in for.
Absolutely. That'll be yeah, next week, November 9th, those teams face off. Thank you again, Brian, for getting up early and joining us this morning. I know it is still dark where you are. You can see that it's light behind me, but we appreciate you being here nonetheless. And thank you for your insight. Congratulations on your new role at SI, and we'll look forward to reading plenty more from you down the road.
Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Thanks, Brian. We'll talk to you soon.